Hi, in this video I will talk about IDR as intelligent document recognition for accounts payables. So you need to review this video in its entirety before you start using IDR. By following these recommendations, guidelines and tips, you can maximize field extraction success rates to improve invoice entry automation. So let's start. First of thing, the introduction of IDR feature of accounts payables. As you know that many of suppliers customers choose to send and receive payable invoice electronically via email. Oracle ERP have designed a unique solution called Intelligent Document Recognition as IDR to extract invoice information from emailed documents to create invoice and import them in accounts payable module. IDR offers a fully integrated invoices recognition solution that supports the entire invoice lifecycle, including document capture, recognition, routing, invoice entry, approval, payment, with a seamless and secure user experience. As you use the IDR service, it uses machine learning to improve the extraction. It learns from corrections you make to invoice to understand how to extract invoice fields when future invoices are received from a supplier. As a result, invoice recognition improves over time. IDR enables our customers to quickly process supplier invoices from entry to payment. So instead of enter the invoice manually, it just sends the invoice to specific emails as in specific formats. Depends on that. If everything is matching, it will be imported successfully in account payables with never validated to let the users to complete, to make validate, create account, check everything, attachment, everything, and then create the accounting and approve it. In case of if there anything is missing, it will be in incomplete status. Incomplete once you resolve the issues or complete all of the missing informations, then you can the status will be changed from incomplete to never validated to validate and complete the cycles of invoice in account payable. This end-to-end solution requires minimal setup configuration, thereby reducing the total cost of ownership and enhancing capital management. So again, it enables customers to quickly process supplier invoice. For the high-level product flow of IDR, that invoices are emailed to the IDR inbox. IDR processes the invoices and extracts the relevant informations, whatever the other documents which is related to the invoice also. For example, the contract, negotiation, whatever. Invoices appear in the scanned information. There is one scanned informations tile on the invoices landing page with an incomplete status again if they need attention, or not validated status if all expected fields are recognized. Incomplete invoices are corrected using interactive viewer, which allow users to simply highlight the correct information on the invoice. IDI learns from the corrections. As you see here, if you log into Oracle, you will find thumb tab for the scans. By default, you can see the invoices that have been scanned in the past 7 days under this scanned information tile. When you click on the number in this, it until 14 whatever. You can see the invoices that were scanned and are incomplete or haven't been validated in the past 8 to 14 days. When you click on the number of above 15 in this information tile, you can see the invoices that are incomplete or haven't been validated in over 15 days. So the scanned information tile only lists the incomplete and not validated invoice. Validated invoices are shown under the recent information tile in this tile. So for an example for an complete invoices that requires changes to be made to the invoice amount, you will find like this example that this invoice is imported with incomplete because the amount of the invoice is missing from the invoice which is sent by the suppliers. As you see here, that the total due is appearing here in the scanned invoice or the emailed invoice, whatever, but once it's imported is missing the amount. For like these cases, you will find the incomplete invoices in the tile of the scanned invoice. Before you start, there are prerequisites you must know before starting to using the IDR or enabling or configure it. So first of thing, that you make sure that you have invoices to test, that customers need to select invoices to test in test environment to ensure that the setups are done correctly and the supplier information in the system match supplier information on the invoices. There should be at least 5 invoices from each of your top 10 or 20 suppliers. That make sure also you test 20 or more invoices from at least 10 of your most frequent suppliers. You should begin setting aside invoices as soon as you plan on using IDR so that you have sufficient invoices for testing. Your testing should be end-to-end, from email to approval and payment and accounting. Full cycles. Email the invoice, import, check the status, validate, approve, create accounting, make a payment, create accounting, send or transfer journal to GLs. This is the complete cycles for testing IDR. Make sure that the supplier's name and addresses you set up in Oracle Cloud Procurement or Oracle Cloud ERP match exactly to the supplier address on the invoices. That the customers should determine how suppliers and sites should be set up, and the implementation team needs to ensure that the addresses assigned to the sites are matching what is shown on the invoices. For example, if you have PO box on the supplier site's records, but the invoice uses a street address, this discrepancy decreases IDR's ability to automatically detect supplier reference on the invoice. Customers and the implementation team should also try and have a unique address for each supplier sites for the best recognition rates. As I told you before, that IDR uses the supplier name address as one of the main ways to match the supplier to invoice. So if they don't match, you risk lower recognition rates. If there are multiple sites with the same address, then you may have to step in and tell EP which site the invoice is referencing. Make sure that the supplier names addresses you set up again in procurement or Oracle exacting to supplier address on the invoice. This is, I think it's duplicated. Make sure that the purchase order format on your invoices match exactly to the purchase order format you set up in procurement. The customers again and the implementation team need to determine all purchase order number formats for legacy systems and all departments. IDR uses both the distinct purchase order number formats observed in the purchase order tables and the formats set up in Oracle Cloud Procurement to detect purchase order numbers on the invoices. Determine your PO format. Customers again and implementation team should consider alphanumeric purchase order numbers that ensures that the purchase order number is unique and is not confused with any other number on the invoice. IDR uses the purchase order format defined in procurement. The recommended format for best results is 3-lettered followed by at least 6 numbers. For example, ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. IDR picks up legacy purchase orders formats that have been imported from legacy system, so there is no need to create this. Determine if there are any specific type of suppliers that should not be included in the group of vendors for recognition, for example, internal suppliers. Customers again needs to determine what type of suppliers they have. Implementation team must exclude suppliers such as internal, whatever, used for example for intercompany purchases, because the implementation needs to make sure that all excluded suppliers are setups with a proper supplier type such as internal, whatever, and populate the lookup of AB exclude image vendor. I will talk about this setup or configure later to exclude a specific supplier type from IDR features. So you need to create a lookup and I will show you the setups. To avoid approval issues such as the invoice attachment missing from invoice approval notifications, you have to make sure that include a variety of invoices in the test group. Again, customers or implementation team must confirm attachment size of invoices once imported, and supports needs to confirm notifications attachment size setup in BPM. Customer or implementation team must increase the attachment size of the email under application performance in the BPM worklist UI at the user interface of BPM worklist. You can also increase the number of attachments there too. For the setup intelligence, there are around 4 steps. First of thing, if you are scanning invoice, you have to configure a scanner setting. That setup in scanners to the following the specifications for the absolute best results. First of thing, for the best document quality, the setup the scanners to produce TIFF or PDF documents with international telegraph and telephone as CCITT. If available, configure scanners to use dynamic adaptive thresholding to produce high quality documents when scanning invoices with color or shaded backgrounds. Ensure the page size is either letter 8.5 inches multiply 11 or A4. Larger size pages could cause performance issues. When possible, scan the document in the correct orientation. If documents are in the wrong orientation, IDR tries to automatically rotate and orient the document correctly as a part of the document recognition process. Step 2, for the manage IDR options, you have to navigate to manage intelligent document recognition options page from function setup manager and the configuration or configure IDR options. These options are affected by the following: how your business unit is derived, how you would like to recognition your invoice lines, how you would like tax freight to be calculated and displayed, how you would like to handle service and utility suppliers. As you see here, for the manage intelligent document recognition options, through setup and maintenance, financial, payable, manage intelligent recognition options, you have to select the relevant options. Each is explained. We Again, if you are updating from our automated invoices solution, this step is done for you as a part of your migration, and all setups are done based on your current setups done from the migrated solution, and you don't need to do this. First of thing, that email address for all invoices. The first option on the managing IDR option is the IDR image email address. This is the unique email address that Oracle has assigned to you to send all the invoices for processing. Oracle recommended that you create at least one email address for your company on your email server, and have a forwarding rule to automatically forward emails to your IDR email address. Advantage of using forward is that you can use a simpler email address and track email before it's sent to IDR. Moreover, you can usually configure such auto forwarding to maintain a backup of the email on your email server. So again, this is emails like Oracle Kit Welcome. It's one emails you have to receive from Oracle to using for IDR options. Again, if you didn't receive of once you log in here and try to configure the intelligent or IDR, and you face that there is no email or whatever, in this case you have to create CSR as a service request with Oracle to provide you the image email. Again, it's not a big issue, you just need to raise or contact service request with Oracle support to provide you the email address. For the business unit, defaulting business units as derivation options, we have, as you see, that 4 options. First option is blank, as you see here, blank, that based on standard business unit defaulting that is described, and the business unit default, that we will talk about the defaulting business unit because we have default business unit for matched invoice and in my unmatched invoice. So we can start by email routing attributes. Email routing attributes that allow you to specify business unit in the email subject line using an underscore. This is recommended when you know that the suppliers will not be using underscores in the subject. You only have 1 or 2 business units, or you are enabled to map email address to business unit. So if there are routing attributes in the email subjects routing attributes, so this is the email routing. So the email routing attributes, when you know that the suppliers will not be using underscores in the subject. And later we will talk about how to map between the emails and address and the defaulting of the business unit. For the sender email address, this allows you to create a mapping of email address to business unit, and when an email is sent to IDR. IDR checks the mapping based on the sender's emails address and select appropriate business unit. When using these features to derive the business units, it's recommended that emails are sent to individual representing a certain business unit and then forward automatically or manually to the IDR email address. Notice this option is selected the mapping table icon, for there is one B icon here to make a mapping between that table icon instruction for populating mapping for sender and recipient business unit. For the recipient email address, this allows you to create a mapping of recipient email address to business unit that are used by IDR to determine the correct business unit. This would be used if the email address being mapped is not the first email address in the email list, For example, if the email from invoice@supplier.com was forwarded to invoices@yourcompany.com, then the forwarding rule forward it to the Oracle provided email address. When the email come into Oracle provided address, the sender's lines look like invoices@supplier.com. Business unit defaulting. For matched invoice, business unit default from purchase order. As you know that we have two types of invoices, matched and unmatched. For the business unit defaulting for the matched invoices, it depends on the PO. Matched means there are PO's details. So there, during making or create a purchase order, there is a business unit. So for the matched, the business unit will be default from what? From PO. For unmatched invoices, the business unit default from the business unit assignment of the supplier sites that sits as a pay site. If the supplier site cannot be determined from the imported invoice document, or no pay site is defined for the supplier, or the site has more than one business unit assignment, then the business unit defaults from the user's default business units profile options. And also there are specific profile options to assign a default business unit to specific users. I will also show you later how to do this. This is the users that running or has scheduled the invoice import process for the invoice document. So whatever, once the IDR is completed, you will schedule or run the invoice import process to import all of these IDRs emailed invoices to check the status in the scanned invoices, either incomplete or not validated or whatever. If a specified business unit derivation setup in the manage intelligent options using email routing, then the business unit in the email subject routing attribute 1 from the invoice email is defaulted onto the invoices and want to be used instead of standard business unit derivation logic, which is to derive the business unit from the supplier side. And if it cannot pick up from the supplier side, then it will use the profile option as we said before. If you specified business unit, if you specify the business unit derivation setup in the manage IDR options using the sender email address, then the business unit default based on the sender email address, and the business unit is mapped to the email address specified in the pop-up mapping table that is opened by clicking on the icon to the right of the derivation method, overriding all other period defaulting logic. If there is no mapping founder, then IDR uses the standard business unit derivation logic that is to derive the business unit from the supplier side. Again, if it cannot pick up from supplier side, it will use profile option of the supplier or of the users. Again, if you select the using recipient, then the business unit default based in recipient email address. Business unit is mapped to the email address specified in the pop-up mapping table that again owing of the right of the derivation methods, overriding all other period defaulting logic. If there is no mapping, IDR uses standard business unit derivation logic, which is derive the business unit from the supplier sides. If it cannot pick up, again it will be use the profile options. So you can use only one business unit derivation setup for unmatched invoices from manage IDR options. So it will only be either the routing attribute or the sender emails or the recipient email address. For the default business unit profile options for users, as I told you before, you have to set up, go to setup and maintenance. You have to search in a global search or whatever, and you can search by manage administrative profile or values, and you can search by defaulting org ID. For the default org ID, you will find profile levels, which is users. You can assign the users as a profile value and which business unit you will make a default for the users. You can repeat it, or you can add whatever's the users, these users who will be run or schedule the import process of invoices to import all of the invoices from IDR, from legacy systems, whatever. Even if in general, if you have a lot of business units and you configured a payables and you need to default business units for specific users, so default means that if these users log into payables and try to create a payables, so the first business unit or the default business unit will be appear, which you provided here. This is what we mentioned before, that if the business unit is not mentioned at the supplier sites as a base sites, the IDR will pick up it from the profile options which you assigned to the users. This is the profile options as a default org ID. For the create mapping, before we said also we will create email mapping for the sender and the recipient business unit derivations. To create a mapping for the emails options for both sender and the recipient email address, first of thing, again, you have to, for the over defaulting business unit, we said before that there is icon here, that these icons to make a mapping between the sender and the recipients. So first of thing, this is override default in IDR. You have to click on this icon, and the email to business unit mapping, this pop-up appears. Click on the plus sign here to add a sender or recipient depending on the selection you have made. Enter the email address of the sender or recipient depending on the selection you have made. Repeat step 2 and 3 until you have completed entering all the email address and the business unit combinations, and click OK when you're done. As you see here, the email address is for this business unit, email address 2 for business unit, other business unit, email address 3 for other business units. And again, this box will be disappears after you click OK. This box will be disappear after you click OK. So this is the mapping between the sender and recipient, and also mapping the email address to the business units. For adding the requester, that IDR will recognize and extract the requester from the invoice document, which is eliminates the needs to manually enter the requester details in EP. The invoice requester is recognized from the invoice document by identifying requester email address if it's available on the invoice. To enable these features, just enter your organization's domain name in the maintain document recognition option page, as you see here, requester email domain name, and this is as you see here that if your organization has more than one domain name, enter multiple domain names separated by semicolon, as you see here or as shown here. Don't enter any spaces in the domain names, for example netsuite.com between semicolon or whatever wouldn't be a valid domain name. If the invoice document has multiple email addresses, then the requester is predicted with the priority based on the domain list in the setup. For example, if this setup were used and an invoice document had two email addresses, one being for example Smith at netsuite.com and Jane Smith at oracle.com and Jane Smith at oracle.com would be selected because that the requester, because oracle.com as listed here is listed first or before netsuite.com. So again, if you have a lot of invoices or invoice document has multiple email address, it was using by the priority which you put it here of the domain name. The invoice requester details are imported into Payable only if the email address is recognized as a valid email address. A valid email address is the email address configured as the employee's work email under employee setup in the HCM Human Capital Management applications. For recognition and processing options, there are a lot of options in IDR configuration options. First of thing here, as you see, recognize tax amount. Select these options when you want the tax amount to be directly taken from the invoice. The tax engine calculates tax but ensures that the calculated amount is set exactly to the amount recognized from the imported invoice document. Again, when this box is unchecked, taxes are calculated using the tax engine that is included with Oracle Cloud ERP. Taxes are added to the tax sections of the invoices as separate tax lines. When this box is checked, the invoices import programs honors the tax control amount, tax amount from the tax, and the tax are calculated during import process, and if calculated tax amount is not equal to the control amount will be used. If the invoice is in complete status, tax are not calculated during import process for this invoice and are done during the invoice validation process. Validation process doesn't recognize or honor the control amount and will use the tax engine to generate the tax amount and use tax amount for the tax on the tax invoice. Again, for the recognize freight amount, this determines how freight or shipping is handled when there is a separate freight or shipping line included on the invoice. Deselect these options when you don't wish to include freight shipping lines on the invoice. When this box is unchecked, if the invoice included a separate freight or shipping invoice lines, the freight or shipping lines is excluded during the invoice import process. When this box is checked, again, if the invoice includes separate freight shipping line, the freight or shipping line is including during invoice import process. For recognized lines for matched invoice, this allows you to only import the invoice headers for matched invoice, enabling you to create matched lines manually from the UI. For invoices matched to purchase order only, when this box is unchecked, the import program ignores all invoices lines of the type item and only imports the invoice header information for invoices that are related to a purchase order. When this box is checked, the import program attempts to match all invoices lines of type item recognized by IDR, and the Payables will attempt to match lines recognized by IDR to corresponding PO lines. For recognized lines for unmatched, again, this allows you to only import the invoice header for unmatched invoices if you want. This would then allow you to manually enter the invoice lines and not have to worry about what is recognized by IDR. For invoices that are not matched to purchase order only, when this box is unchecked, the import program ignores all invoices lines of type item and only import the invoice header informations of invoices that are not related to a purchase order. If you check this box, the import program honors all invoices lines of type item recognized by IDR and import them along with the invoice header. For validate legal entity identified for invoices, matched invoices, this option determines whether the legal entity is compared between PO and the predicted legal entity on the invoices. If there is mismatch between PO and predicted invoices legal entity, this option determines how to handle the invoice. When this box is unchecked, the import program will use the legal entity from the purchase order for matched invoice. For unmatched invoice, the legal entity is recognized from the invoice document. If legal entity is not recognized on the unmatched invoices document, then default legal entity is derived using same logic that used on the create invoice page. When this box is checked, the import program will use the legal entity from the invoice document for matched invoice. If the legal entity is not recognized from the invoice document, Payable will derive the default legal entity from purchase order. Payable will also verify that the legal entity identified for the invoices matches the legal entity of the purchase order recognized from the invoice. If legal entity don't match, then the purchase order is rejected during the invoice import process and the invoice is imported in incomplete status. In the application, you can see an error on the PO field that you can correct to proceed further. For unmatched invoices, the legal entity is recognized from invoice document. If again legal entity is not recognized on the unmatched invoices, then the default legal entity is derived using same logic that used on the create invoice page. For create tax during import, this option determines whether the tax should be calculated on the imported invoices during import or not. If you uncheck, the import program import the IDR based invoice documents without calculating tax. If the box is checked, the import program import IDR based invoice documents after calculating tax on them. But note that if the invoice is an incomplete status, again the tax is never computed on the invoice documents by the import program, regardless of how the configuration is set for this feature. Allow create invoices in incomplete status. This sets all invoices to incomplete even if all attributes are successfully extracted, and is usually set when you want to review or verify all invoices prior to validating and paying them. If this box is unchecked, import program invoice is incomplete or never validated status based on the success or failure of extracting all required attributes. If this box is checked, the import program always imports the IDR based invoice documents in an incomplete status, even all attributes were successfully extracted and the invoice should have been imported in a never validation status. The IDR based invoice documents will always be set to incomplete and will require verification before validation can be done. Create single invoice line for service orders. This allows you to create one line on the invoice equal to the invoice subtotal, so that matched invoice that may be multiple lines can match to a service based purchase order that has only one line. Use this to increase the success of the matching process when the purchase order must be single line service related purchase order, but the invoices that our suppliers sends are more detailed. For invoices matched to service purchase orders only, if this box is unchecked, during the import process, the matching process tries to pair individual invoice lines with the purchase order lines. If this box is checked, during the import matching process, drops all the invoices lines recognized by IDR and creates one single line invoices paired to the purchase order with an amount equal to the subtotal amount paid by IDR. Create single invoices for utility suppliers. This allows you to set up vendors with the vendor type utility to create a single line invoice equal to invoice subtotal for easier recognition of utility or other types of invoices that are formatted like utility bills. For invoices that are not matched to purchase order only, if this box is unchecked, the import program import all invoices lines. If this box is checked, the import program verifies if the recognition or recognized vendor is set to vendor type utility, the line description is set to utility supplier invoice line. A single line will be then created for the invoice based on the totals. Import only paired lines for matched invoices. This option decides how to handle unpaired lines for matched invoices, whether you import them or not. You may want to use this if you use multiple purchase orders on invoices and not all lines are matched to a purchase order. For invoice matched to purchase order only, if this box is unchecked, the import matching process import all invoice lines. This means that both invoices lines successfully paired to the valid purchase order in the invoice header and invoice lines unsuccessfully paired to the valid purchase orders in the invoice header is imported. If this box is checked, the import matching process imports only the invoices line successfully paired to the valid purchase orders in the invoice headers. Unpaired lines are dropped and won't be imported into payables. So it depends on whatever I said and depends on your organization requirement. You have to uncheck these boxes, depends on the business requirement. Confirm the designated email accounts. That email accounts, as mentioned earlier in this document, can be found under Manage Intelligent Document Recognition in a functional setup manager. As I showed you before, that there is one email address. Invoices are delivered to IDR by the email account provided by Oracle. You can give an email address that is used to send your invoices to IDR for processing. So these emails you will share to send all invoices to these emails from the suppliers, whatever the users, for IDR processing. To protect email address from spam, junk, whatever, Oracle Product Development recommends that you set up one or more email accounts for suppliers and or users to send emails with the invoice attachment and then forward those emails from those accounts to the designated emails account automatically using a forwarding rule. So instead of send direct to these emails for IDR processing, you can set up one or more email accounts and make a forwarding rule between these email accounts and IDR email address. As you see here, that once you go to manage IDR options, here you must subscribe to IDR to access this page. This is error what I mentioned before you can face. In this case, you have to raise SR with Oracle to using IDR. So once you raise the SR, the Oracle will resolve the issues to provide you the email address which will be using for IDR processing. And also there is one document ID in Oracle support like 1966280.1. You can follow this document for further instructions how to get or how to raise SR with the proper informations to get the email address to put it here for IDR processing. There are some general information about IDR you need to know. Emailing the documents that supported invoices, lines or types IDR recognition supports two types, standard and credit memo. Supported document types, as I told you that IDR also supports the following documents: file extensions, PDF, TIF, TIFF, PNG, JPEG, document, and document X. While emailing the documents, ensure the following: don't send password protected PDF files as attachments. IDR cannot open those documents. IDR will send these documents through, however, they appear as blank document within the interactive view since IDR was enabled to open and process them. To view the invoices document, you have to download PDF file and open it using a PDF viewer that allows entry of the password. Invoices must not contained in a zip or compressed file. IDR doesn't support attachment contained within embedded emails, such as email message with an attachment to another email. Attaching invoices: organize invoices within the attachments in the following ways. That there are three recommended options of attaching invoices to the emails. Single invoice attachment, recommended for suppliers emailed PDFs. Multiple invoice attachments, again recommended for suppliers emailed PDFs or scanned document. For multiple invoices in one attachment, each scanned invoice must be separated by a blank page. For these methods, every page in the document must be an image. The first page of a document should be the first page of the invoice. For example, no cover pages. Maximum attachment size is 30 megabyte per email. 30 megabyte per email. Before including and excluding suppliers or whatever, for including supporting documents within an invoice, supporting documents such as receiving document, contract, notices, and others can be included with the invoice. To ensure that IDR only extract invoice information from the invoice itself, include the page separators with the text invoice supporting document. You will also find example in Oracle support document 2014464.1. Supporting documents will be imported along with the invoices and visible in the interactive invoice viewer. Also take care that supporting documentation needs to be included in the same file along with the invoice. If the email including the supporting documentation as a separate file attached to the same email as the associated invoices, IDR treats the supporting documents files as another invoice attachment and tries to process it as an invoice. Use underscore in email subjects. In general, it doesn't matter what is entered as the email subject. However, you must not include the underscore on the subject because the application treats that symbol as your intent to populate routing attributes on the invoice. So again, also you have to testing validations on testing environment before you decide to move the configuration on the productions, and try to test around 10 invoices, 20 full cycles from importing until payment and transfer to the general ledger. For the including and excluding internal suppliers or whatever, as we said before, that intercompany invoicing or including internal suppliers, intercompany invoicing is not commonly used for IDR since they can be processed through Oracle ERP Cloud intercompany functionality supported by GL. So you can read GL for intercompany transactions to process it, but in cases where intercompany invoices files must be processed through IDR, you can do so by using distinct supplier type for these suppliers. For example, if you have 10 internal suppliers and will be using IDR to create invoices received from only 2 of them, so you should create 2 separate supplier types. For example, internal include, internal exclude. For the internal include, you will assign these 2 internal suppliers that you want IDR to recognize, and for internal exclude, you will assign the other 8 remaining internal suppliers. When you create service request for enabling these features, you will provide suppliers type as internal include in the service request information. Again, if you have, for example, 2 types of suppliers, you need to include some of them, you need to exclude some of them. First of all, you have to assign the supplier type for all of these suppliers, either include or exclude. Include means that these suppliers, I will share with them the email address of IDR to send the scanned invoice, image invoice, whatever, to this email address. For the exclude, I will exclude these suppliers from the IDR processing. So I will assign these suppliers to the include type and the others for the exclude types. During I raise SR with oracles to give me or configure or help me to prepare the IDR configurations, I will include whatever the type of include in the service request informations to let them know which type of suppliers I will include it for IDR processing. Excluding internal suppliers. For example, if you have suppliers that generated invoices that are used for intercompany or internal use, you need to ensure that you indicate these suppliers by using a specific supplier type. Add that supplier type to the suppliers. If it doesn't exist, then add that supplier type to the EP underscore exclude underscore image underscore vendor underscore type lookup. For examples, you have first to select manage supplier lookup from procurement, search by manage supplier type lookup. Then verify that the internal lookup code exists. If it doesn't exist, you have to click plus to add the internal lookup code, display sequence, start date enabled, and the meaning and description is internal. Once you click, you just save and close, and again you have to navigate again to search, global search, and manage standard lookup, and plus here for manage standard lookup to adding the manage or AB exclude image underscore vendor underscore type, and click save. This you will put it in the lookup type, and in the meaning you have to meaning whatever this lookup that excludes this vendor from IDR processing, description whatever, and the payables will be the modules will be payables. So again, you manage standard lookup under this AB exclude. You have to include whatever the lookup code which we already make it before for internal suppliers. Just make sure that the lookup code match exactly to the supplier type lookup code. Again, you just enter whatever the lookup code here for this lookup type. You have to make sure that the lookup type or lookup code matches exactly to the supplier type lookup code which we defined before. If they don't match, then the suppliers won't be excluded. You can add multiple lookup codes if they are set up under supplier type lookup code. Any supplier setup with any of the supplier type listed under this lookup type had their invoices excluded from IDR processing. So this is example of how to exclude. First of thing, you have to create supplier type code and lookup and assign these to the suppliers. After that, you can go to manage standard lookup for AB exclude image IDR and assign this lookup code to this which is matching with the supplier lookup to this exclude. It means whatever the supplier is assigned to this lookup code, it will be excluding from IDR processing, and they cannot send scanned or image invoices to the IDR email address. Again, you have to schedule import process, payable invoice process, to import all of the invoices either from IDR or from other legacy system. Again, you can go to import from invoices, just select import invoices, and here you can enter the ledgers and leave business unit blank and select invoice image as a source. As you see here in the source is invoice image. Leave business unit blank. If you enter a value of business unit, the import process won't import all available invoices from interface tables based on security of the users scheduling the process. Leaving this field blank allows the port process to import all available invoices from the interface tables with the missing key information so that it can be corrected and users can perform learning. Just click on advanced here to start to make a schedules for as soon as possible using a schedule, and enter frequently, hourly, minutes, whatever's, and click on submit. It will be very good that to schedule this import process to import hourly or in minutes as a frequency all of the IDR imaged invoices which is sent by the suppliers to the payables interface invoices tables. The applications requires an end date, so here end date, it requires end date, so make sure it's fair enough out in this test phase or whatever to import the invoices immediately for testing. You can process immediately by selecting as soon as possible. Leave business unit blank when running the import process to ensure that the validation rules are set to allow the invoices to import with missing data. Security setting will prevent any invoices that are not supported to be imported by the schedule or individual users. These invoices will remain in the interface file until they are imported by a users with proper credentials. Configuration routing rules. Incomplete invoices is an invoice created from an invoice document that has invalid or missing data. By default, these incomplete invoices are routed to all users with two rules or two job roles: account payable specialist, account payable supervisors. For AB supervisor and AB manager rules, these incomplete invoices appear under the scanned information tile and are grouped by creation date. So in case of you need to configure routing rules for these incomplete invoices, because for the AB, for the account payable specialist, maybe you assign this job role to a lot of users, or account payable also supervisors, so you can configure of routing rules to change the rule, to change the application rule, to whatever. So through this way you can configure to if you need to route it based on other rules, you can modify the routing rules or add a new routing rules based on the invoice attributes using approval management extensions as AMX or Oracle SOA Suite or Oracle Human Workflow. Just as you see that, click on bill, show link, show all, go to work list, and just click on here, go to administrations, and search by incomplete, find app incomplete invoice hold. This is the tasks for all incomplete of IDR. Find app incomplete invoice hold. You can modify existing, that you just edit task and whatever, modify, add, delete, whatever the rules. And for examples, here for this I need to add or whatever, just go to assignee, select intercompany and click add. You will find the business rule here. It is here by job rule, as I told you that there are default 2 job rules. You can also click on search here to select whatever specific named or whatever, or change it for rule here, conditions that I will put 1 is 1 to use other invoices attributes. Select from condition attributes. You can plus here to add a lot of attributes for a specific business unit, amount, currency, whatever. And then what is the list builder? Is it resource? Is it supervisory? Is it approval group? What is the response type? Is for your information or required? And select whatever you want. In case of you need to assign application rules, another job rules, whatever, you can modify, delete. And there are a lot of videos for approval rules through PPM, work list approval rules. For example, if we select the rule here, application rules, in our case that we will make it depends on application rules. These application rules, it will be, for example, financial, supply chain management, whatever. Then once you enter the application rules, as you see, or EB account payable specialist job, you just search to and then OK to validate and ensure that there are no errors. Save and commit task to ensure that the new rule is functional. This is how to modify or how to delete, how to add a new rules for routing invoices for the incomplete invoices of the IDR processing. There are for the reporting, there are 2 reports available for IDR: payable image invoice tracking report, invoice recognition rate report. These reports, through tools, you can schedule the reports. These reports, for the first of one, this report for payable invoicing image tracking. This reports to enable users to administrator to track the status of the mailed or the invoice email attachments, also the status of the invoice at each stage service until it's imported and created on Crowd Payables. You can run by email address of the senders as well as to and from dates. From tools, schedule process, schedule new process. You will find payables image invoices tracking. You can also search by sender email address, or you can put from to dates. This is also some sample output of payables image invoice tracking report. The email address, received, subject, sent, attachment, email, processed by IDR, timestamp, image processing completed, not completed, import process ID, what is the invoice details, and image unique reference number. The other one is invoice recognition rate report. The invoice recognition indicates the recognition rate of the invoice attributes recognized by the IDR. This report provided valuable insights into potential changes to setup options, supplier data, suppliers that may be benefit from adaptive learning. The invoice recognition rate, again available in two formats: supplier summary and invoice details. Again, from tools, schedule process, schedule new process, you can select the name, image, invoices recognition rate reports. From two, the format, as we told you, invoice details and summary or supplier summary. For the invoice details, you will find the details of the invoice, PO number, unmatched, supplier name, site, currency, amount, date, whatever, and the suppliers name, invoice unique identifiers, and it's grouped by the suppliers. For by supplier summary formats, as you see here's recognition summary. It's recognition summary by the suppliers. These suppliers is total completed, total cancelled, deleted, purchase orders, supplier name, supplier site, and attribute recognition for invoice number, amount, currency by the suppliers. As you see, supplier advanced network, Advantage Corp, Advantage Corp site, another site, whatever. This is the reporting of IDRs once you configured, once you received, once you complete, incomplete, whatever. You can run these two reporting to check the details of the IDR invoices. Before, I need just to mention one thing, that this document just for your reference to how to make reconcile as you see here. The document ID is 221074.1.1. This is how to enable imaging audit report. Again, in case of you need to make to track the status of each report, of you need to make a reconcile between the IDR automated and whatever is one second, yes, whatever is processed, whatever is imported to my Oracle, you need to make a reconcile between this and this. You can use this module or this ID, Oracle ID, to and follow these steps to, I think, to build a report to make a reconciliation between whatever is in IDR and whatever is imported in Oracle. This is also a very good to make reconciliation between these two parts. In case if you have any doubt, if you have any questions, whatever, you just need either emailed me or you can put in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.